Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to those of you around the world. Welcome to the daily Trade the Chain crypto update, where we give you everything you need to know for the next 24 hours and hopefully the next few days. Today is Thursday, November 2nd, so we're 2 days into brand new month and rounding out to the end of the week pretty soon here. Total crypto market cap is sitting at 1.28 trillion. Average sentiment dipped down to neutral. When we were earlier discussing this week, it was a little bit more bullish. Things are pulling back right now. We'll obviously discuss that. Bitcoin sentiment neutral, ETH sentiment neutral, slightly bearish as well. Still seeing a lot of tweet volume, and of course, trading volume sitting around 60 billion, which is good. We definitely want to see that. Like I said, been saying each session, we want to see that above 40 billion, and it's been pretty consistent so far. Hottest on Twitter, bit mixed. We saw Sushi have a pretty crazy day yesterday. Probably going to pull back a little bit with that sentiment hitting 90, but definitely good to see exchange tokens rallying. That's usually a sign of something to come. These are usually kind of early runners in kind of the alt paradigm and could signal, other L1s running as well. Most bullish coins are pretty bullish. Ray bit of the outlier here. But bullish, still seeing some bullish correlation. 1.3% of BAL added to exchanges. Would watch out for some big volatility in the near term, possibly margin longing that in the future. And then mostly mixed exchange withdrawals and deposits. We saw a big deposit come in right around the open this morning. Maybe a red herring as prices are low, or maybe they're getting ready to buy the dip that we're going to discuss in a second. So another piece of key data there. Let's move over to DXY, which I find fascinating here. We had this big gap down, after FOMC yesterday. We're sitting on the 4 hour. So this is, we'll have to see if this ends up getting plugged. Usually most gaps do end up getting plugged, but it doesn't have to be an immediate kind of plug, but we'll have to see how that happens. But this wick down here, swept that low from the week. And now we're kind of back in the weekly range. So what I told the TTC community, above 106.1, probably going to end up tagging 106.6. Again, got that gap right there. And then after that, maybe we drop down, or, if you reclaim 106.6, then you've got obviously these highs to attack as well. And we'll get rid of these lines just to not sow any confusion. But, this kind of range is clearly critical for this week. Every time we dipped in it, bounced up, and then deviations up here. So this is kind of our key range right in this area. And then if we end up kind of seeping down, dropping below this level, then we will end up probably grabbing these lows, and that's when things get really hairy. So interesting thing I think about this is that DXY is rising, so is equities, but this is having more of an impact on crypto. So something to probably keep an eye on. If you are longing or shorting crypto, this seems to be a little bit more correlated, but we do know those kind of correlations can rise and fall depending on what's going on with the market. But equities, told the TTC community yesterday, once I saw, don't want to do that. Once I saw these buys come in yesterday, I alerted the TTC community, because as you can see here, we had multiple buys during yesterday, the Wednesday session, that were greater than the biggest buys, throughout the past week. We did have some big buys here, but it wasn't consistent. We did see a lot of selling, following that. So we had a lot of buys come in yesterday, 3 massive buy volume candles. And obviously we just lifted higher from overnight and obviously into today's session. So we're above that nice round number of 4,300, but we need to claim 4,300. We need to, close above it, bounce off of it. And then we can start talking about 4,340, or possibly, some sort of path up to 4,400. So this is kind of the next critical level right around 4336, 4340. And then we kind of have this little demand zone up here. If you recall, we kept selling off at the 4,400 level. So that would kind of be my next target, 4,400. And then, after that, either reclaim or maybe take a dip back down to maybe 4250 and then kind of reclaim that rise. So right now equity is good, but obviously if DXY does keep chugging higher, could have a little bit of a pullback on equities. But if we can even zoom out, so let's get on the 12 hour here. So we are approaching the 12-hour, estimated 200 moving average. And I'm sorry, got to get rid of, some of these lines, reset fresh. As we can see here, that next line is sitting at 43.40. So that should be a critical level. And if you, again, around that 4,400 level, that was when a lot of selling occurred. And if we just kind of draw this line right here, this is the current trend. So we do know, there's multiple areas of confluence around 43.40. So that's maybe where a little break occurs. Or if we get a little excited, if we just hop straight up into that 4,400 area, bearish trend's broken, then we kind of have a little more of a bull trend going, but we have yet to see a pullback yet. Obviously, we need a higher low. So, do not be scared if you see, price come back down to this 4,200 level. I don't think that'll happen immediately, but you never really know. We do need kind of that higher low for new market structure. Maybe that comes after we break up here and we kind of form a higher low somewhere down here. But that next higher low, whatever it is, whether it's around here or around here, probably a great pickup for equities if you miss this. Now we could just continue shooting higher. Can't count that out, but as we're looking here, like this is market structure, right? We've got lower low, lower low, lower low, lower high, right? So we don't want to form another lower high, just yet. But if we do, then that lower low down here, that's kind of an inverse head and shoulders. And then that's what would send us higher. So in a perfect world, we, either form equal highs or a higher high before that higher low. But, just, a lot of things to consider. So I do think we'll probably face some resistance at 43.40. Ideally, we break above 4,400. That sets new market structure automatically. And that's the best case scenario. But for now, be happy with the green candles, watch out for some resistance around 43.40. And, we know what happens if we break above 4,400. So looking at Bitcoin, this isn't too bad for a pullback. I will say, deviation above that local high right around here, certainly not what you want to see. But again, it's talking about market structure, higher lows are exactly what you want to see. And if this ends up being a higher low, that's pretty much picture perfect. We reclaim 34.9, and then we have a path all the way back up to this high and hopefully forming another higher high, or just, zooming all the way up to, around 37K, which is the next kind of critical resistance level. So basically the moral of this story is you want to hold 34K. If you hold 34K, you should be able to get back above 34.9. And if you get back above 34.9, there is a path to, again, form new highs. If we break below 34K, then we talked about this earlier in the week, we've got a lot of confluence in this area. So I would expect kind of 34.5 to be a good bounce level. At worst, 33. That does kind of form slightly new lows on the lower term chart, but we kind of have this sitting down here. So it's still safe down to 32.5 in my opinion. But again, above 34K is quite literally the best case scenario for continuation. Now, ETH is looking very interesting, and let's just kind of get our bearings straight here. Look at the ETH BTC chart, mostly flat. Since we started talking, it was a little higher in the week. We obviously had this massive deviation, and then we're just mostly flat. Same price we were at the lows on Saturday or on Sunday, and then obviously of Thursday last week. So no real change here. But if we do zoom out to kind of the 12-hour, ETH definitely still looking quite weak. This is certainly not anything that I would want to long, but if we do end up somehow doing something like this, reclaiming, if we can reclaim this trend, probably a decent long, not the worst long here with a stop at the lows, but nothing is really telling me this wants to head higher, considering we've got all this wicking action every time it gets above kind of that 0.053 level. So ETH definitely still weaker than Bitcoin as it stands. Could change, but not seeing anything clearly right now is probably the moral of this story. And then if we look at price, again, just like Bitcoin, forming those higher lows, right? And we just kind of met this low. So we just kind of swept. We didn't exactly sweep the weekly low, but we got close to it. So obviously the weekly low is down here, but pretty close, bouncing off the 1 hour estimated 200 moving average as well. So good confluence of support. And then I told the TTC community, as long as we can stay above 1800, we should have continuation to then move higher. And when we talk about higher, I think it's probably better to zoom out to the 4-hour. And let's get rid of these to lessen any confusion. We'll do that. Drop this down a little bit. And then I've got this big ass circle up here, but there's a lot of confluence here with both this long-standing bull trend that, dates very far back. So if you're just thinking about general trend trajectory, this kind of area is exactly where you want to look to next. And of course, if I, zoom out for everybody again, that 2K level, and I'm going to just draw this because for some reason my lines get really weird. But as you can see here, this high, we have this high from May, and then we have this high from July. So both critical levels, and it all kind of coincides with this trend that started on March. So if you're just kind of thinking about, okay, we're having massive variance in price action, but overall the trend is heading north. Well, this 2K level seems like a next good stop if we can break above the recent highs. So basically the play is break above into this large range, and you should eventually find the top of the range. So if we can hold 1800, then we have and if we kind of zoom in here, this is just kind of like this is just like a parallel channel, right? It's kind of like a megaphone channel or something like that. So if we can just kind of make our way back up to the top of the channel, then maybe we can break out of the channel and head up to 2K. And that's kind of the play for each. And obviously that depends on holding 1800, because if you don't hold 1800, then you possibly have new market structure. So things are going to get hairy, but you're definitely going to see some longs entering. If we lose 1800, then I would look towards these lows down here around 1750. That way market structure still remains intact to some degree. And then maybe we just get a fat wick that propels us, maybe back above 1777 or back above 1800. So I'm sorry, I misspoke this. If we break below 1800, first next step would be these weekly lows, which is 1777. Then below 1777, we have 1750. Below 1750, market structure completely changes. That would definitely scare a lot of participants and maybe send us back 1700 or lower. So you definitely, above 1750, you're still got a bullish trend. Above 1800 is the best opportunity to continue the bullish trend. So that's how I'm looking at things right now. Obviously, if you missed yesterday's FOMC, in my opinion, it was quite dovish. And, that's why we warned the TTC community of higher prices. Obviously, after FOMC, we did have a big boost in price action, but for some reason, Europe and US sold off today. Not unusual. It's volatility, it's crypto, but definitely a little concerning that we're seeing equities just continue to rip higher when crypto is pulling back a little bit. But obviously equities did not have the massive boost that crypto did. So, a small, what percent pullback is this from the high for Bitcoin? So a 3 to 4% pullback, not the worst case scenario when you're talking about, basically a rising channel here, could see it as a bull flag too. So, in my opinion, I'm still cautiously optimistic. Now, could we move lower? Certainly. But are we more likely to move higher in the mid to near term? Yes, because even if we drop down here, maybe we chop a little bit. As long as we hold these levels, we should still end up moving higher because market structure is still intact. And of course, if equities continue to move higher, I think that is going to add a feather in the cap of the crypto bulls, because it would be very, very, very unusual for these just to flip in an inverse correlation. And I think a rising tide will lift all boats as long as maybe this gets a bullish trend. Maybe this is just waiting for kind of a bull trend for crypto to react positively. Because again, if we get that new market structure, then then market structure obviously shifts from bearish currently to bullish, and then maybe that inspires some leakage in other risk assets. Could also be the play of people just taking profits from crypto, buying equities, just kind of on the cyclical action. And so, but in general, my thesis is if equities continue bullish, it would be I would be shocked if crypto did not ride with equities at some point. So we Daddy-O asked a question: does this recent bump up negate a Bart Simpson follow on? Now, that's a good question, because we all have seen the old Barts where it's we've got this, we've got, and then that's the Bart. That's the kind of the end of the Bart. So we're looking at Bitcoin. Yeah, I got you there, YO Daddy-O. So now, whenever you see a deviation, which is kind of why I pointed this out, it is certainly worrisome, and we are getting that downside price action. I will say this hourly looks, fantastic, because this purple area is weekly value. So as long as we're staying within value, that's very positive. If we started to bounce out of value, now the likelihood of a BART continues to increase, because you're trading out of value and people will get scared and panic, and longs will close and shorts will open. And it's a pretty negative feedback loop. So I would say, the BART's chances increase on a break below 35, and increase much higher on a break below 33.5. Now, if you're in shorts from up high, you're obviously sitting pretty and protected. And I can't tell you exactly what to do with your money. I would probably shave some money off of a short near the highs, considering this reaction to the low end of weekly value. But we have not yet, even sniffed the weekly lows, which is also another concern as well. But you have a lot of confluence of support at 34K with this 1 hour estimated trend moving average, weekly lows, and obviously weekly value sitting around 34.3. And then you still have confluence of support with last week's kind of fair value at 33.5, along with these lows down here. So I would say, considering the trajectory, instead of just being flat, the trajectory has been moving up. I think that there's much less chances of a BART in this situation compared to others, especially with the prospect of the ETF on the horizon. Now, if something comes out where the ETF gets perpetually delayed, or Gary Gensler, something really weird happens, that is going to be that would be a news BART opportunity for sure. But as it stands right now, with just the news we're given with the FOMC meeting yesterday, it would really, really, really shock me if we broke below 33. I think that that's going to be a very, very hardcore line in the sand, at least in the interim. If I'm wrong, I'll have to eat my my words. But just the fact that we're seeing continued bullish trajectory is positive. Now, again, the reason I say 34 is important, because then that kind of changes these higher lows. It doesn't exactly change it, but then we would form a lower low compared to this set of lows, and that would be kind of the first hint of a break in market structure. So if you're down here, these lows are kind of negated, and now you're looking at these, and obviously after a brand new week, then you could kind of convince yourself maybe market structure shifting, because then if we maybe we get back above 34, but then we reject at 35, then you've got a lower high too, and then you've got another lower low. So then your market structure idea shifts. So I don't think we'll BART just yet, but if we do drip below here and then reject up here, that is a really good case for a BART opportunity, as you would form that lower high and that lower low. So that's how I would look at it. But I mean, it's crypto, anything's possible, but I don't think anybody is ready to really take too much profits right now, until we know a little bit more about the ETF and what's coming, especially with equities roaring. Now, if equities do something like this, then yeah, BART opportunity gets even greater. But with equity strength, with market structure maintained, I can't even consider the possibility of a BART right now, because market structure is not showing me anything of that possibility. But again, if we break below 34K, that's when things start to change, in my opinion. So hope that helped. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. We're nearing the 20-minute mark on the show right now. So, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach me in the TTC community, www.tradethechain.com, 14-day free trial. Get signed up. You can join the community immediately. Feel free to come in, ask questions, share trades, ask for trade ideas, whatever you'd prefer. The community is, of course, everyone's domain who is a GTC member. So with that being said, I'm feeling, as long as we hold 34, as long as we hold 1800, I'm feeling pretty good about continuation into at least the mid half of November. And, again, I do think that the 2K level on ETH is likely if we hold 1800. And I do think the 37K level on Bitcoin is likely as long as we hold 34K. So good luck. Happy trading. See everybody tomorrow.